Much, Peter. That's a beautiful, settling opening practice. And apologies here for being late, dealing with a little bit of power outages and rainstorms here in the Bay Area. But welcome, everybody. So nice to have you all here, to see names, faces. Today, we're going to be talking about this idea of resolving internal tensions. And I think so often we're kind of at odds with ourselves. We might want two different things. We might feel a sense of stress, anxiety, restlessness, maybe a sense of kind of ping-ponging back and forth. Maybe, for example, ping-ponging between blaming somebody else, feeling really frustrated at something external, versus blaming ourselves. Maybe a ping-ponging between confidence or overconfidence and self-doubt. So these internal conflicts between different parts of ourselves can create real turmoil and tensions in our systems, in our minds, and in our bodies. And so today what we're going to do is a simple guided practice, and it will be a little bit of a guided kind of visualization reflection practice that I'll lead you through, and then a little bit of journaling to help acknowledge some of these different perspectives that we might be holding, these opposing parts. And the idea here is that when we acknowledge them, we might be able to create at least more ease to reduce that sense of internal tension or polarization, and also sometimes create more clarity. So the thesis is really this: when we feel that sense of inner tension, stress, anxiety, at least but I think for many of us, our go-to move is to jump to doing something, to fixing something in the external world. Or maybe we totally shut down and we do nothing. Instead, if we actually pause and kind of go inside first, be with and acknowledge what's happening inside of us, kind of a U-turn, right? Instead of going out there, we're doing a U-turn and coming back inside first. We can actually create greater ease and often greater clarity. Sometimes we come up with a different solution. Sometimes we have access to more wisdom, or maybe just more confidence that what we're doing is kind of the right direction. All right, so you're going to pick something to work with, something that you feel some tension or ambivalence around, and we're going to do a practice together. So let me actually, before you jump into picking something, let me actually give you just an example from my life recently. So one example, recently I had a colleague and a friend of mine reach out to me she wanted my help with a project, just some kind of picking my brain. And normally I love to help, and this is the kind of thing that might feel like my normal reaction would be excitement. But for some reason, I didn't feel enthusiastic here. I felt a sort of inner tension, like, oh, don't really want to schedule this. I felt some resistance, a sort of weight of obligation. And so instead, especially knowing that I was going to be sharing this with all of you, instead of just powering through and being like, you know what, let me just say yes to this friend, I actually sat with this for a little bit and acknowledged, okay, there's a part of me that wants to help, that wants to be a good friend and colleague, that values the relationship, that wants to be a good person. I don't want to say no. I want to come through for her. I value being helpful. And then on the other hand, there's this part of me that was actually kind of, if I'm being honest, a little judgmental, like, oh, she shouldn't need my help. And underneath that, when I sat with that, was actually a fear. I don't know what this is going to take to actually help her fully with this project that she's asking for. And then, to be totally honest, there was maybe a third voice that was kind of a critic of like, why is this so hard? Just go help your friend. So as I sat with it and actually could acknowledge, oh, I do actually want to help. I want to show up for this person, but I also need to kind of limit. I'm not sure how much I can. My fear is really of being overwhelmed and having this, mushroom into something bigger than I mean to commit to. So sitting with it, I actually got a little clarity of, oh, I can say yes, and I can say yes in a way that's clear about what I can offer. I ended up saying, oh, great, but I let's start with a half an hour meeting, and then let's see what this looks like from there. So for you, and this happens for all of us so often, right? Maybe If you think about an example, maybe it's something where you need to give some feedback to somebody that you know would be helpful to them, or a project you're working on, but you're hesitant. You're maybe afraid of how it'll be received, afraid of losing contact or connection with that person. Maybe you're taking on a new project or a new role, and part of you feels super excited and gung-ho about it, and you know you can do it. And part of you really isn't sure, like, oh my God, this might not work. Maybe I'm an imposter. I can't believe I'm here. Maybe there's a decision that you need to make, something where you know the right answer, but you're afraid of disappointing somebody. Maybe a way you react, maybe you get angry or blame somebody and you don't really want to. So I'm going to give you a moment to think of something that you'd like to work with. But before I do, any just initial questions about the premise here? This idea is you're going to pick something in your life at the moment where you feel some sense of tension. It could be physical, it could be a sense of ambivalence, a decision you want to make, and we're going to work with it. Yeah, Ian, is that a question? I see your hand up.
Yeah, sorry, I had trouble coming off of mute. This is helpful. Really appreciate that framing. I'm wondering, for me, one of the things I was thinking about is attention of like an ongoing issue that I've been thinking about, not necessarily very discrete like the example you gave. So I'm wondering if there's any specific framing that would be helpful in going into the exercise and thinking about like an ongoing skill or ongoing habit that I'm trying
Yeah.
to enable in my life.
Great. I think an ongoing habit or situation that works too. Yeah, thank you for that. As long as there is some, I can imagine maybe there's something you want to, a skill you want to develop, but you clearly are procrastinating. So maybe there's something else in the way. That would be a great thing to work with. As long as there's something where you can kind of see two sides. As we go into this exercise, I'll sort of generically talk about the part of you that wants to and the part of you that doesn't. So as long as there's something that kind of fits. Okay, cool. Any other questions here? All right, so let me give you a moment, and I'm going to ask you to both pick something that you'd like to work with and also find a place to write. And so that might mean going to grab a journal or just opening up a clean Word document or note document of some sort. We're going to do it as both a little internal reflection, and then I'll give you a chance to write a few things down. All right, does everyone have something to work with? Okay, great. Seeing some nods. So this first part, we're going to use our hands literally. I'm going to ask you to kind of hold the perspective in each hand, and I'll guide you through this. So, and if you'd like to kind of close your eyes, settle in, it's going to be a bit of a visualization here. So let's start by just settling, finding a comfortable spot. Let's take a big, deep breath together. And to start out, I'm going to have you just evoke this situation, this ambivalence, this decision, whatever it is, the situation that you pick to work with. Just bringing it to mind. Maybe bringing to mind any people that are involved, any tasks you need to do. And as you do that, just notice what that feels like. Notice what goes on in the body. Are there any areas of tension or tightness? Any energies? Any thoughts or emotions that come up? How does it feel to hold this situation? And then when you're ready, I'm going to ask you to hold your hands out, palms facing up in front of you. And in one hand, see if you can place one perspective. Say the part of you that wants to do this, maybe the part of you that wants to help, that wants to learn the new skill, says yes to the decision, whatever that is. So placing that perspective, that part of you in one hand. And take a moment to just acknowledge it. Maybe saying, okay, I hear you. Part of me wants to do this. And just give that perspective a moment to really see if you can understand it. What is this deeper intention for you? What does it want to express? Seeing if you can really be with this one perspective, relating to it, and hearing it out. And then when you're ready, placing the other perspective in the other hand. Part of you that doesn't want to do this, maybe is holding resistance, procrastination, something else. Holding that part of you, that perspective, in your other hand. And just acknowledging that perspective. Noticing it's trying to protect you in some way, and seeing what more might that perspective want to express. What is the deeper intention of this side, of this perspective? And then seeing, can you be with both of these? Can you be with both of these parts of you, these perspectives at once, making more space for both of them? Maybe even moving your hands a little bit away from you. Maybe seeing what it's like to move them a little closer together. You might take a moment to just acknowledge these are two different important perspectives. Neither one is entirely right. Neither is entirely wrong. There's probably some wisdom in each one. And seeing, you can just see kind of all three of you, perspective A, perspective B, and yourself, all on the same team. You'll figure this out together. Noticing what happens, noticing if you feel more identified with one side or the other, maybe a sense of ping-ponging back and forth. Maybe you can kind of breathe yourself bigger than each one. Imagine holding both. And giving space for maybe a third perspective, or maybe some wisdom or clarity to come in. And just notice how that feels in the body. No right or wrong answer. Maybe there's more tension, maybe there's a greater sense of ease, maybe something else. And when you're ready, taking perhaps a breath or two, an intentional deep breath. Opening eyes if they've been closed. And finding your place to write. Finding your journal or place on the screen. Opening a document. And I'm going to give you just a minute or so for two different prompts. The first one is, what is the deeper intention at each side or perspective? What is the deeper intention of each side or perspective? And it may be from something you realized in that practice, or it may be a new investigation. And bringing your sentence to a close. And second and final prompt, how might you best meet your deeper needs? How might you best meet your deeper needs here? Taking into account all of the needs of the different perspectives. How might you move forward? And bringing whatever you're writing to a close. Maybe just taking a moment to look over what you've written, information you've gotten, just noticing, is anything surprising, anything new? Anything you want to take away and remember? All right, and as we come to a close here, I would love to just first just see show of hands. Anyone that maybe did feel a greater sense of ease or clarity from this? Okay, cool. Anyone who wants to share, and feel free to share if you did, or feel free to share that really didn't work for me. I feel more confused than before. Sometimes when we start to go inside, that can happen. That can happen too. Charlotte, please go
Yeah,
ahead.
I'll share. I focused on a tension with a colleague and just really dug deep into why and what was behind it, and came to a good solution. Really just kind of thinking about the whys and
Yeah.
the upsides and the downsides.
Yeah. Oh, lovely. Thank you, Charlotte. That sounds, yeah, sounds fruitful to start teasing things apart. And also a comment in chat identified some deeper needs, but got stuck on how to meet them. Yes, that seems worth sitting with. And I'm sorry, this isn't a longer exercise, or we can dive in even more, but at least getting to, sometimes when we're at odds, the deeper needs are more similar than when we expect. And there can be kind of a, oh, okay, then that's how to move forward. And sometimes it's about getting creative. How do we balance the opposing needs, or yeah, move forward and mitigate one versus the other? So I know we're at the half an hour mark, so I want to thank you all so much for coming. If anyone needs to hop off, I'm happy to stick around for any other questions and comments. But thank you all so much. Really, really appreciate it. And thank you for trying this all on.